It has all the hallmarks of the great epic, boy born in obscurity, magical figures, battles, it has knights, it has romance, it has tragedy as well, of course, and then it has this notion at the end that the king will return. That, I think, is comforting on some level, that in England's greatest need, this epic warrior will return.
So whatever you think a perfect king is, that's Arthur. What he's become is a British personification of the ideal king. And therefore that varies across different periods, because people's idea of what they want from a king and what they want from a leader is historically quite variable.
Arthur was a great king. But even great kings sometimes need help. So too would Ivan in his quest to defeat Koshchei the Deathless. Ivan journeyed on through forests and valleys until one day he came upon a wondrous palace hidden among the trees. As he neared its gates, he was watched from the branch of a lofty oak tree. For this was the home of the Falcon Wizard. Ivan explained his quest to him. The wizard knew of Koshchei and the danger Ivan faced. He promised help if ever it was needed. Ivan continued on his quest. In the days that followed, he met an eagle wizard, then a raven wizard too. Both made the same promise to Ivan. He would need all their help to succeed in his quest and rescue the lost princess. Heroes cannot do it all alone. Sometimes they will have to rely on the wisdom and aid of others to triumph. And sometimes these helpers are in disguise, sometimes they possess magical powers, and sometimes they go on to become as famous as the heroes themselves. At King Arthur's side, through many of the stories, is a mysterious figure with magical powers, the wizard known as Merlin. He was the one who planted the sword in the stone, and it was he who brought Arthur from obscurity to claim the British crown. In popular culture today, Merlin is as renowned as Arthur himself. He is the archetypal wizard, the ancestor and inspiration for Gandalf in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings and Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Star Wars films. But magical helpers such as Merlin are found throughout myth and legend. Joseph Campbell recognized this. The supernatural aid is usually an older character. Their wisdom and guidance are needed for the adventure ahead. Often, too, they must give the hero the final push necessary to leave the ordinary behind and enter the special world. King Arthur and the wizard Merlin were once thought real historical figures. Over time, such beliefs faded. However, the stories themselves never went away. The development of the legend in the medieval era culminated in 1485. That year saw the publication of Le Morte d'Arthur, The Death of Arthur. 8 stories of the king and his knights, compiled from sources in France and in England. Here was the Arthurian legend complete. The author of the book was a man named Sir Thomas Malory.
Historical documentation tells us Thomas Malory was a thief, a brigand, perhaps even a sexual predator and a rapist, and that ultimately he was incarcerated in Newgate Prison in London.
We tend to associate the Morte d'Arthur with chivalry and with a particular interest in the Knights of the Round Table as defenders of women. So at first we might go, well, wait, why would a rapist write that?
It's this criminal aspect which has made critics wary of suggesting that this is the Malory who writes Morte d'Arthur, because they see a clear disconnection between his criminal behaviour and a text that seems to be about chivalry.
The Arthurian legends may have roots in more ancient folklore, but Malory's work is distinctly Christian. Religious symbolism saturates the text, and supernatural elements common in earlier versions are all but eliminated. In Malory's Christian Camelot, there is little room for the wizard Merlin and the pagan magic he represents. Even Arthur himself seems tainted by the association. For the holiest and most famous adventure of Le Morte d'Arthur centers neither on Merlin nor on the king he mentored. Instead, it is the knights of Camelot who embark on this great adventure, the quest for the Holy Grail.
The Holy Grail in most mythologies is the cup Jesus Christ used at the Last Supper, in which he consecrated the wine and turned it into his blood. Later in legend, Joseph of Arimathea is supposed to have come along with this same cup and caught the blood from the wound in Christ's side.
That cup then will give immortality to those who then drink from it. Of course, immortality not just in the physical sense, but much more in the spiritual sense.
It becomes this holy relic with this really heightened significance, where it becomes something to be possessed at all costs, but something which only a few people can actually approach.
The knights were called to adventure in the most direct way. During a dinner at Camelot, the castle shook and a holy light filled the chamber. Then, the Grail itself appeared before Arthur and his knights.
After the miraculous appearance of the Grail at Camelot, the knights Lancelot, Galahad, Percival, and Bors set out to retrieve it.
Arthur mourned their departure. He knew the quest his knights embarked upon would change them forever, and that the fellowship at Camelot would never be the same. His knights left the ordinary world of the castle behind. Crossing the threshold, they entered the special world of adventure. Ivan had found his captive wife at last, but the demon holding her was too fast. Try as he might, Ivan could never catch the wind. The exhausted Ivan finally gave up the chase. It was then that Koshchei attacked. Ivan was no match for the strength of the giant. Koshchei chopped him into pieces, bound him in a barrel, and pitched him into the sea. Far away, Ivan's wizard friends sensed his plight. They rescued the barrel and put Ivan back together again. He could never outpace Koshchei, they said, not without a magical horse, and those could only be found beyond thrice 9 lands and a river of fire, at the home of the Baba Yaga. His quest was far from over. But at last, he knew how he could save his beloved wife and defeat the demonic giant. For a hero like Ivan to succeed, he must overcome a series of often dangerous tests. Joseph Campbell called this stage the Road of Trials. Here, these perilous, for an audience, exciting encounters challenge the hero, who is often aided by magical helpers or thwarted by new enemies. But with every victory and setback, our hero is learning and preparing for greater tests to come. No road of trials was longer or more arduous than that faced by the hero of the ancient Greek epic, the Odyssey.
Attributed to an author known only by the name Homer, it tells the story of the journey home of Odysseus after the Trojan War.
He had been fighting at Troy with his fellow Greek kings for 10 years. Meanwhile, on his home island of Ithaca, the son he had left behind was growing up without him. Other men were eyeing his empty throne and Penelope, his unaccompanied wife.
Odysseus was the king of Ithaca, and he was known as being a very important hero during the Trojan War. He was the person who came up with the plot to get inside the walls of Troy with the Trojan horse, and was mainly known for his intellectual skill.
Odysseus is best described by Homer's opening line on him, the man of many minds, the man with the really rich inventive brain.
Odysseus was at war for a decade. Getting home, however, would take just as long.
Such an extended journey was not Odysseus' intention, of course. He had planned to sail straight back home across the sea to join his wife and son in Ithaca. But as was often the case in the tales of ancient Greece, the plans of mortal men were at the mercy of unpredictable and often vengeful gods.
The Greeks had managed to alienate some very powerful deities by their incessant pursuit of Troy. And as a result of that, they've particularly angered the god Poseidon. And the god Poseidon pretty much ensures that Odysseus and his men aren't going to have a straightforward journey back to Ithaca.
One of the people he met on his journey was the Cyclops Polyphemus. This is where the trouble starts.
He and his men are captured by the Cyclops, who's a big scary giant with one eye in the middle of his forehead. He starts eating Odysseus's men one by one, and eventually lets them go by mistake because Odysseus tricks him. But then it turns out that the Cyclops is the son of Poseidon.
Poseidon essentially is very offended at the outrage that's been done to his son and dogs Odysseus' steps all the way home.
Odysseus' journey became a lot more difficult. On his road of trials, he encountered hideous monsters, ravenous cannibals, a deceitful witch, together with all the wild and strange furies of the sea, among them, of course, the beguiling but deadly sirens.
These mysterious creatures lived in a meadow on a tiny island. Singing out to the ships that passed, they lured countless men to their shores, never to leave again. Odysseus knew all this, but wanted to hear their song all the same. He ordered his men to stop up their ears with wax and tie him to the mast. No matter how he pleaded, the men were not to release him, and they were not to stop rowing.
Homer doesn't tell us what the sirens look like. There's no physical description in Homer at all, until you hit some point in the medieval period, where suddenly you start getting many more illustrations of sirens as half woman, half fish.
When we think about how it is to live a life that's dominated by the ocean and by voyaging and by the physical apprehension of just how alien the ocean is, we want to put some flesh on that, to tell a story about that, to tell a story about our fear and our longing. And to do that, we create something that's part ocean and part us. And that's the mermaid.
Mermaids date back to the Assyrian cultures of 1000 BC, but are common to folklore around the world. They are usually depicted as young and beautiful. However, much like the sea itself, mermaids can help or hinder. The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen is a story of the kinder sort. Published in 1836, the book tells of a young mermaid who saves a human prince from drowning. Falling in love, she trades her beautiful voice to a sea witch for a potion which transforms her into a human. But winning the prince's heart proves far from easy. Andersen's kind heroine is unlike many other mermaids, however. In British folklore, the creatures brought bad luck and were said to taunt sailors in doomed ships. Slavic mermaids were also dangerous. They were called Rusalkas and were the spirits of the unhappy dead. Beautiful and damned, they lured young men into the waters to drown beside them.